Why do we need therapy? You don't need therapy because you already believe you can figure yourself out. And that is exactly why. You've been in the same place for years. You can handle everything. You do it. You make it happen. You've read the books. You know the patterns. You're self-aware. So why do you keep finding yourself in the same place? Same feeling, different year, different age. Somehow we end up in the same place. This video will make you uncomfortable. Not because it tells you something new, because it tells you something you already know. Stay. I think what's actually happening is this. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not someone who needs help. You're someone who became very good at not needing help. And that skill, that one skill, is quietly running your entire life. We'll come back to this. Don't answer this. When did you decide that needing help was dangerous? Not yet. Most people think therapy is for crises, for collapse, for the person who can't get out of bed. Those aren't the people filling therapy rooms. Therapy rooms are filled with highly functioning people, competent people, people who look fine, people who, by every external metric, are fine. And they sit in that chair, not because they've collapsed. Why? Because they're tired. Tired of being the one who holds everything together. Tired of understanding their problems but not being able to change them. Tired of knowing exactly why they do something and still doing it. Tired of performing being okay so convincingly that no one even thinks to ask. This isn't a crisis. This is something quieter. Something most conversations don't have a name for. But you know what it feels like. You feel it right now. That slight tension. That small realization. That thing that's stopping you from closing this video. Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it. Not pretend to think. Actually sit with it. When was the last time someone asked how you were? Or you told them the truth? Not the polished version of you. Your real feelings. Not the I'm stressed but managing version. Not the version that keeps them comfortable. The real truth most people can't remember. Not because they're dishonest. Because real truth requires a space where everything is allowed. And most people have never been in that space. Why? Come with me. There's something you know about yourself that you've never said out loud. I'm not talking about a secret. I'm not talking about something dark. I'm talking about something obvious. Something that would take 30 seconds to say. But you didn't say it. You've never truly heard it out loud. Saying it to another person makes it real. And if it's real, you have to do something about it. We'll come back to that. Think about the last time you tried to explain yourself to a friend, to a partner, to yourself at 2 a.m. in your head. You said something like, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but that one word carries years of something unprocessed. You knew you shouldn't feel that way, so you tried to think your way out of it. And when thinking didn't work, you tried harder. And when trying harder didn't work, you got better at hiding it. Most people think they don't need therapy because they're already aware of their problems. They think constantly, obsessively, skillfully, but thinking about a problem is not the same as solving a problem. And that gap, that small, invisible gap, is the difference between a lifetime of insight and real change. Here's the uncomfortable part. The reason you don't go to therapy, or still aren't sure if you need it, is not money, not time, not finding a good therapist. It's this: when there's nowhere left to hide from yourself, you're afraid of what you'll find. It's not fear of pain, it's fear of clarity. Because clarity means responsibility. And responsibility means from that moment on, and you can't unknow it. Subscribe to my channel and find more content for yourself. Most people don't turn back when they're in pain. They turn back at the edge of understanding. Right when everything starts to make sense, they stop. Why? Come with me. We'll get there. You've been there. You had a moment where something started to click. A pattern, a connection, a reason, and something in you changed the subject. You picked up your phone. You thought of something you needed to do. You told yourself you'd come back to it. You delayed. You got scared. You didn't come back. That's not distraction. That's protection. Your mind is protecting you. From what? From something it decided you're not ready for. The question is, who decided you're not ready? And when did they decide that? I want you to imagine something, not a dramatic moment, a small one. You're at dinner with someone you care about. They ask how you are. You say, I'm fine. You didn't lie, because the truth takes too long. And you'd have to explain things you don't even fully understand yourself. And they'll try to help. And somehow their help makes it worse. And then you feel guilty for making them feel helpless. So you say, I'm fine. And that only makes sense if you've learned to live in a very small space inside yourself. Subscribe to my channel and find more content for yourself. Every conversation you've had about yourself happened inside a relationship, a friendship, a family, a partnership, and every relationship has rules, unspoken ones. You know what you're supposed to say. You know what will worry them. You know what will change how they see you. You know what will complicate things. So you edit, you don't lie, you edit, and after years of editing, you start to lose the unedited version of yourself. You start to lose yourself. Not completely, but enough. Enough that sometimes you don't know what you actually think, only what you're allowed to think, that thing about yourself. The thing you've never said out loud. I think I know what category category it falls into is not a secret, it's exhaustion. The exhaustion of being the one who manages everything inside. So nothing leaks out, and somewhere quietly, you were hoping someone would notice, not fix it, notice it. Therapy, in many ways, is the first moment you stop hoping someone will notice and decide to notice yourself out loud in a room built for that. First reason, you're very good at understanding yourself. You read, you reflect, you notice patterns. You've probably traced half your problems back to childhood on your own. And all that understanding stays in your head. It never gets spoken. It never leaves your body in a room with another person. Because here's what almost no one tells you. Insight, unexpressed, doesn't change anything. You can understand your patterns for 10 years and still repeat them, because understanding on its own is not enough to change what's underneath. Words spoken out loud to another person do something different. They make it real. They take the thought out of your head where it's safe, controlled, and edited, and put it into the space between you and someone else. And suddenly it's not just a thought. It becomes real. And once something is real, it's not as easy to reorganize as a thought. You've experienced this. You thought about something for months. Then you said it out loud once. And something, not everything, but something changed. Now imagine experiencing that systematically, regularly, in a space designed exactly for that. You've been having insights in silence for years, waiting to understand enough to not need help. But understanding was always supposed to be the beginning, not the whole journey. You finished the first step and called it the entire walk. Insight is not change. Insight is just the moment before you decide whether you'll change. How many times have you understood something about yourself and done nothing with that understanding? How many times have you said, I know why I do this, and did it again the next week? That's not a character flaw. It's a signal that knowing and changing happen in different rooms, and no one ever built the door between them. I said earlier, most people turn back at the edge of understanding. Now you know why. Because without a structure to hold it, understanding becomes a burden. Subscribe to my channel and find more content for yourself. More awareness with nowhere to land. More pressure with no release. That's not healing. That's a more sophisticated form of being stuck. Second reason, there's a version of you that formed before you had a choice, before language, before context, before you understood what was happening around you. Things were happening, not necessarily trauma, not necessarily crisis, just life. An anxious parent, an unpredictable home, a moment where you needed something, and it didn't come the way you needed it. Small things, ordinary things, and in response to those small, ordinary things you adapted. You became the child who didn't ask for much, or the one who made everyone laugh, or the one who disappeared when things got heavy, or the one who got perfect grades so no one would look too closely at anything else. And that adaptation worked. IT got you through. But that child is still in you, still running some of the same strategies. In adult relationships. In how you handle conflict, in how you handle silence. In what you do when someone gets too close. You've noticed this. You've noticed you react in ways that feel a little too big for the moment. A little too much fear. A little too much distance. A little too much need to fix things. And you told yourself, I need to work on this. And you tried. But the part of you that learned these patterns is not the part of your mind that makes decisions. It's older than that. And you can't reach it by thinking. You know this. You've tried. You sat with logic. You traced the pattern back. You made the connection. And still same reaction. Different situation. Same underlying feeling. Because that part of you doesn't respond to logic. It responds to relationship. To being in the same room with a safe person who sees the pattern and doesn't leave. You're trying to heal a wound. Using the same hand that was hurt. Second reason. There's a version of you that formed before you had a choice. Before language. Before context. Before you understood what was happening around you. Things were happening. Not necessarily trauma. Not necessarily crisis. Just life. In anxious parent. In unpredictable home. A moment where you needed something and it didn't come the way you needed it. Small things. Ordinary things. And in response to those small, ordinary things you adapted. You became the child who didn't ask for much. Or the one who made everyone laugh. Or the one who disappeared when things got heavy. Or the one who got perfect grades so no one would look too closely at anything else. And that adaptation worked. It got you through. But that child is still in you. The version of you that learned to survive. Doesn't know the emergency is over. No one told it yet. Third reason. And this is the one you'll disagree with. There's a version of you present to the world. Competent, thoughtful, mostly okay. And there's a version of you that exists when no one is looking. Not secretly broken. Just unfinished, uncertain, contradictory. Subscribe to my channel and find more content for yourself. Confused in ways that feel embarrassing. For someone who should have figured things out by now. And the gap between those two versions takes energy. More energy than you realize. Because you spend most of your day as the presented version. You're not really there. You went with the person you're trying to be. And when you're alone, you feel exhausted without knowing why. Not physical exhaustion. Exhaustion from being a version other people can handle. Exhaustion from looking unbreakable. And the question therapy quietly answers this. Not what's wrong with you. you. It's, what is the cost of hiding something that isn't wrong? So what is the cost of hiding yourself from yourself and from others? You're not falling apart. You're paying an enormous price to make sure no one sees that you could. This isn't happening in just one part of your life. It's happening everywhere. In relationships, you turn yourself into someone easier to love, not dishonestly. Quietly, you make yourself smaller, simpler, less complicated. And then you wonder why you don't feel seen. At work, you perform competence so consistently that no one thinks to ask if you're okay. And you don't offer it, because offering it would mean admitting you're not completely sure what you're doing. In your family, you play a role assigned to you so long ago you forgot it was assigned. The stable one. The successful one. The one who doesn't need help. The one people come to. And lately, when someone comes to you, there's a small, quiet part of you that thinks, who do I go to? In your self-talk, you become the harshest voice in the room and the most exhausted listener. You criticize yourself in ways you would never criticize a friend. And then you criticize yourself for being self-critical. The loop closes itself. In your decisions, even small ones, you don't choose what you want. You choose what the version of you others need would choose. And that version has been in charge for a long time. In your habits, the moment something uncomfortable surfaces, you reach for your phone. Not because you're addicted, because discomfort doesn't have a defined place. In your social behavior, you show enthusiasm for things you don't feel. You show comfort in places you feel alone. You became an expert at looking okay in every situation except the ones that actually matter. And the ones that actually matter you mostly avoid. This is not about being broken. This is about an untrained capacity. There's a difference. Your whole life you were told you're too sensitive, or not sensitive enough. Or too much, or too closed. What no one told you is that most of what you've been managing alone was never meant to be managed alone. Humans are not designed for private processing. We are designed for witness processing. To be seen while we figure things out. And most of us were seen wrong. Or not seen at all. Or seen in ways that required performance instead of presence. So we learned to process alone. In the CAR.in, the shower. At2am.in, the notes app.in, your journals. Actually, in your mind. And we got good at it. So good we started believing we don't need a witness, that we can do it alone. And in many ways you can. But doing it alone and doing it well are not the same thing. You got so good at surviving without support that you convinced yourself you don't need any. There's something that happens when a trained person sits across from you and reflects something back to you in your own words that you've never heard before. It's not new. It was always there, but you couldn't access it from the inside. You've experienced a version of this. A moment with someone you trust where they said something about you, not criticism, not advice, just an observation. And you went quiet because it was so accurate it felt like something unlocked inside you. Now imagine that happening systematically, regularly, with someone whose entire role is to hold that space. This isn't magic. This is just what happens when you stop doing all the work alone. Now let me ask you something harder. How long have you been the one who solves everything alone? How old were you when that became the only safe option? Not as a conscious decision, just slowly, through enough moments where you reached out and the arms weren't quite there. Not absent, not cruel, just not built for what you were carrying. So you learned to carry it yourself. And that was smart. That was adaptation. But survival strategies don't retire automatically when the danger is gone. Stay. They are quietly.in the background, like software installed in childhood still running on adult hardware, still protecting you from threats that no longer exist in the same form, still keeping you small in rooms where it's safe to be big, still keeping you silent in conversations where your voice would actually help, still keeping you slightly distant from people who are actually trying to reach you. And you know this. Somewhere you know this. The child who learned to need nothing is now an adult who doesn't know how to ask. Here's the thing about people who love you. They'll respond to who you are. And that means even if they want the best for you, they have a quiet, unconscious preference for the version of you they already know how to love. Not out of bad intent, just human. You felt this. You changed a little and felt someone in your life subtly pull back. Not because they don't want you to grow, because growth changes relationships. And relationships, even good ones, resist change. Therapy is the only relationship designed without that pull, designed specifically to let you lose who you are in order to find who you could be. That's rare. Most people have never experienced that. We're getting close to the end, and I want to close the loop. I opened at the beginning. When did you decide that needing help was dangerous? I don't think you decided. I think it was decided for you by a room that wasn't safe enough, by a person who didn't have the capacity, a moment where you reached out and something inside you recorded the response and quietly concluded, this is something I do alone, and you've been doing it alone ever since. Brilliantly, impressively, at a high personal cost, and the cost is invisible. It doesn't show on your face. It doesn't make you late to work. It doesn't make you cry in public. It just makes you slightly less there, a little behind glass, watching your life from a small, polite distance. And the thing is, you got so used to that distance, it started to feel like clarity, like you're just an objective observer of your own life, but you're not observing. You're absent, and that absence is the cost of the armor. You didn't stop feeling. You just got very good at feeling from a distance. There's a version of you carrying something for a very long time, not dramatically, not in a way that worries anyone, just quietly, like a stone in your shoe that you keep telling yourself you'll deal with later, but you don't. You learn to walk differently. You adjust your step. You stop noticing the stone. And one day you realize you've been limping for so long. You forgot what it feels like to walk straight. Therapy is not someone removing the stone for you. It's finally stopping long enough to take your shoe off. But there's something I didn't say. Under everything we talked about today, there's a pattern that decides whether you go to therapy or not, whether you ask for help, whether you let people in. And it has nothing to do with self-awareness. You can be the most self-aware person in the room and still be completely controlled by it. It has a name, but not in this video. You already knew something was wrong. Not with the world, not with the people around you, with the way you keep ending up in the same place. Now you know what that place actually is. The place you built when needing help felt dangerous, and you've lived there so long, started to feel like home.